Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
What was that?
Hello.
Oh, you're back.
So good.
Guys, what was that?
I don't know. There's some weird things going on. Maybe we need to get Rob Reamer back on the podcast. I don't know. Something strange.
Had a hairball. Sorry.
Yeah, you
Hello,
sound like
world.
Mark did on Sunday. Struggle talking.
Yeah. Anyways, that is weird. Hopefully that doesn't happen
Wow,
again.
okay.
Yeah. Anyways, Alex. Also,
What do I mean by
Alex.
that?
Ever since I was told corn was real,
Yeah.
it tasted good.
Yeah, it's true. It has the juice.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
makes no
And when I
sense.
tried it with butter, everything changed. I love corn.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The
just had
corn
to-
is just taking over the internet
it's
right now.
taking over the
Ever.
internet.
And I've learned something about TikTok and Instagram Reels and Shorts.
What have you
It's
learned?
like something takes off on TikTok, and then about 2 weeks later it hits Instagram, and then about a month later it hits YouTube Shorts. Like the trends are just very slow to kind of migrate.
So when do you feel in the know? When you see it
I mean, it's on
on
TikTok.
Facebook, and you've already seen it on
Facebook.
TikTok.
Wait, Facebook.
Facebook?
Facebook is like a chicken website. It's like for farmers.
Sorry.
To sell
Another hair in
chickens.
my.
But I do think chickens like corn, so
Yeah, that's
they
the
eat it
juice.
for feed.
It's got
You guys are
knobs.
bizarre.
Have you not
Everyone
seen the
agrees with
corn
me.
thing?
Is it the little guy that
Like,
is holding the
yeah,
ear of corn and he
yeah.
loves corn?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
She's
so
just not as entertaining.
You just
I'm
don't
not.
like.
Yeah.
You
But
don't.
he's cute. He's cute.
Did you see the song? Hear the song though?
No, I honestly, is it with his little voice?
Yeah, they used his.
Those- if
They used the auto tune song
Oh,
to make.
no.
Wait.
haven't
I'm
heard
so. We gotta unpack this.
I have not heard it. I've seen
you
the little
said, "Is
guy.
it with his little voice?" And then you seem disturbed. Do you have a problem with little kids singing or something?
I can just picture it. If it's like if it's like Teletubby,
There are-
themed, I can't.
There are
It-
people
it's a
getting
thing.
angry about this.
Oh, really?
Actually, right now.
Oh.
Because I read one article on the ethics of it,
Mm.
like, because he's on Cameo now, and
Yeah.
should we just, are people just taking advantage of this? And, you know,
Chipotle. He's on the Chipotle TikTok
Really?
account. Yeah.
yeah, Nebraska, Huskers, obviously.
The Chipotle one
utilized
was
it.
really good though, because it was just like you just saw from the server's perspective in the bowl, and they're like, "Do you want rice?" And he's like, "No." You want chicken? And he just went down the line, and then he just got to corn, and that's all he wanted. So
Just
it's
a
cute.
bowl of
It
corn.
was great. Anyways,
Wow.
people are never going to be happy about anything. Everything is upsetting.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we've learned. If we've learned anything on this podcast, we also learned that we have a voicemail. What's that phone number? Do you know the phone number by heart?
I don't have the phone number memorized.
Okay.
By heart.
It's 402.
It is 402.
And then I forgot after that.
Yep. I also.
You guys were spending so much time
Watching corn
corn
videos.
and whatever you did to my voice.
I think it sounds fine. I think it's fixed, whatever that was. Thanks
Right.
to Austin, the producer extraordinaire over there. He fixed it just like that.
That phone number, here
Yeah.
it is, for those wanting to know, is 402 885 9930. We're going to have to get that memorized.
Yeah.
402 885 9930. A couple weeks in a row, though, people have found it.
Yeah, you can find it on our Instagram. That's at CCCOMA podcast. And you can call or text. Someone called last week and left a voicemail, and they did it again this week. So thank you for that. We're going to play that voicemail here and see what they have to say. Maybe.
Hi, uncomfortable crew. I hope this message finds you being comfortable. Anyway, my name is Chris, and
Not
I
now.
have a topic idea and or question. Topic is, what makes your blood boil? Here's an example from myself. I'd like to think that I'm a pretty laid-back, easygoing guy, but there is nothing that makes me more upset and want to do unspeakable things
Whoa.
than someone doing something negative to children. It's very hard for me to. Obviously, I don't do anything to those people, but man, does my head go to
That's good
places
to know.
that I really wish things would happen to them. So obviously that is a pretty deep example, but it could be as simple as road rage, like being ignored, not being validated, like any annoyance that could take your eye off the ultimate goal of trying to be like Jesus. really like talk about ways to combat those feelings and whatnot. Definitely a very uncomfortable topic, being Christians and managing anger and whatnot. So thanks, and keep on doing what you guys are doing. I love the show.
All right. I missed his name. What was his name?
Chris.
Chris. Thanks,
Thank you,
Chris.
Chris. Yeah.
Thank you for sending that in. So pretty much the question is, what makes you irrationally angry? I mean, he used an example.
Or your blood boil.
Or blood boil. Okay. So I mean, he used an example of like people harming children, which I understand. I think that would probably make most people pretty upset to varying degrees.
When he said, I like what I think about doing unspeakable things, and then it was like to people that hurt children, it was like hearing somebody say, I think about doing unspeakable things. I'm like, okay. But then when they say attach it to something, I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like the people that, you know,
Do
hurt other
unspeakable
people.
things.
Right. Like do it.
Yeah.
Like you can kind of have empathy for that.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
my.
I can go.
That's an interesting question.
I know right away. I hate being misrepresented. It's one thing that like frustrates me more than anything. Like if someone says I said something that I didn't, or you know, that sort of thing. It's not like I get angry and I want to hurt somebody, but I get really frustrated trying to kind of clear my name. Like, no, I didn't mean that, or you're saying that I said that, or you're saying that I'll have this conversation with my wife all the time. I did something like 10 years ago and she'll say, I always do it. That drives me nuts. I'm like, I haven't done that for so long. Why are you saying I always do that? So that sort of thing where you feel like you don't know how to change someone's perspective about you, that really, really frustrates me.
Ugh.
But I don't
that.
think about
That's
doing
frustrating.
unspeakable things to those people, but I do have
It
to
makes
take
your
a
blood
moment
boil.
and like step back from it and just go, okay, why does this matter to me so much? Why am I getting so upset about it? And kind of run through those questions a little bit and try to center myself. But
That's a good one.
The first thing that comes to my mind is like,
when they sell out at Crumble Cookie,
when I'm in line
yeah,
at Crumble Cookie and the one cookie that I wanted
is gone.
has the sellout go. No, not that. The thing that really, and I don't know if it makes my blood boil.
Does
Maybe
it make it like
really
simmer
anxious.
a little bit, like right before the boil?
Is if I get like a cryptic email or text, you know, that's like, hey, can we meet about this? Or, you know, something that's kind of very pointed, like we need to talk. And then it's like, you know, it's like if somebody sent that to me today, then they're like, next Tuesday.
Yeah.
And you're just like, what? Like I'm like, no. Yeah, we can talk, but not next Tuesday. Like we need to talk now, you know?
Can
like
I
I've
say
gotten
something
email
about that
yes,
about you?
Yes.
I know that about you.
Yes.
Because I remember you saying this, like, I don't even remember what context. And so when I've texted you, I always try to add context.
Yeah.
Because I'm like,
You don't want
gotta
to
let him
stress
know.
out.
And
'Cause
I
I
don't know.
know.
And like my mom, I love her, but you know, she is like, can you call me? Like she'll send, instead of calling me, and I get it because she's like, I'll just send that real quick. But instead of calling me, it's like, can you, and like when things feel like it's emergency level, they needed to talk to you. But like I've gotten some work emails like that, or, you know, other emails. And most of the time, like my mind, and maybe it's just, you know, maybe you need to counsel us on this, Jess, on how, because he did ask, like, how do we start to combat that? And I think that's a good question in here for discipleship. But yeah, I'm like, to the worst. You know, I had that happen to me a couple weeks ago. Somebody texted me like, hey, can we get together soon? And I'm just like, oh, what? Okay. And I always am like, can you give me a heads up to prepare myself for what that is?
Yeah.
And usually I've learned to do that, and it's
Yeah.
eased the nerves a little bit. So
and then it's usually when you find out what it is, it's like, okay, if you just would have told me that,
yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't have
I wouldn't have
out.
been thinking about
Do you
it.
have something, Jess?
I don't know.
Nothing makes you angry?
Oh, lots of stuff makes me angry. I'm thinking like blood boil, unspeakable things.
Okay, well, maybe it doesn't have to
violent
be
level.
that. I don't think that Alex's was
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there.
I mean, when people make fun of homeschoolers,
I feel like the thing
See, I
is like
just did
when people things happen that fester. So like I hate repeatedly like feeling like not heard by people or like not respected, and it's not like I expect it from people, but it's just like when it's like a consistent feeling, I'm like I kind of like lose the buy-in.
Yeah.
And then it just makes me feel like, okay, well, there's something about me that's not good enough for you to like see value in me. I think a lot of things that we're talking about like have to do with like our identity.
Yeah.
And so like our feelings, even like things that like make our blood boil, it's like it really like is somehow attached to whether it's anger or it makes us feel insecure or worthless or anxiety. It's tapping on something internally in us.
Yeah. I think, I mean, to kind of go to some of the answer there, like one of the things, like I'm even having an example of, you know, someone sharing a story in our community group this week that was kind of a bummer and, you know, frustrating. Like I immediately heard it. I feel bad for the family and it just is a not fun situation. And like I get angry at the people that put them in that scenario, that took advantage of them. But then I also go back to like hurt people, you know? And so the more I realize that, and yeah, that they are a victim, but then somewhere along the line, like it's hard for me to think that just inherently people just got evil or want to like hurt kids or whatever that is out of nowhere. Usually it's because of there's this hurt in their life that it's acting out, or, you know, you heard that with kids that are bullies or whatever, a lot of times they have stuff going on behind the scenes. And so then
something led to it.
Yeah. And so it doesn't make it what they did justifiable by any means. But for me, sometimes when I get hurt by people, I have to remember, okay, there's some more layers probably to this. And somewhere along the lines, that person, some of these actions are probably out of their own pain. And, you know, how I want both of those situations to be rectified. I want both people to hopefully find healing in that situation. But again, yeah, like with kids or, you know, people that are vulnerable that get taken advantage of or whatever, that there is like another probably level of like disgust, you know, for that kind of stuff. So.
I do think that though, even in all of our situations, it's like anger does not always equal, oh, Eric, you're bad because your blood's boiling. It's like, it's also like something that somebody's doing to you that's hurt you. And so I don't always think that anger is bad. I think that there's like a place for it. It's kind of like after you feel it, like, what do you do with it? Because I think like in even that situation you just shared, I'm just thinking like, yeah, I mean, they're probably justified in being hurt and angry, and there's a space and a place for that. And I don't think that that's necessarily wrong.
Well, anger is a God-given gift. I mean, our emotions. And so how do we steward that, you know? Because you should be angry when an injustice is done or somebody has been taken it. Like you should, that should be the proper response. When you become numb to that, that's almost the more dangerous thing. And unfortunately, when we live in a 24/7 internet culture, I think that's the thing we're more in danger of, is like, you just see this stuff so often, like kids being taken advantage of or whatever it might be, bullying.
Yeah.
You know, some of the racial tension stuff, that you almost become like disheartened or disillusioned to even feeling an emotional attachment of anger to it. And so, I mean, I think having those feelings is probably a righteous thing. But then how do we respond, and how do we make a difference where we're at? So.
I think it's good. Hopefully we answered your question well, Chris. If anybody has any other questions they want to send in, you can text us. You can
fun, doesn't have to be that deep. Fun stuff too.
Yeah, something fun, maybe something a little lighter. Speaking of things that are lighter, up next we have headlines. Okay, our first headline comes from people.com, and it says Starbucks pumpkin spice latte is back, plus a new fall drink.
Woo woo.
And we tried it. Not us here, not the Uncomfortable podcast, but the people at People. They tried it, and I'm just going to get right to it. Like, we just need to know what that new fall drink is. It's an apple crisp oat milk macchiato. Who wants to try it? No?
No.
Why?
Because last year they came out with the apple crisp macchiato sans the oat milk, and it shook me in a bad way.
No. Oh, really? Like it tasted bad?
Yes.
Oh, that's sad.
I would say stick to the pumpkin, even though I am a huge proponent of apple.
Yeah. I like oat milk a lot. I like the oat milk coffees a lot. I was excited to try it. Now you got me scared. I want you to try it,
and because I don't. Okay. And I want your honest review.
Okay.
But it was funny because they're like, this is the 19th year of the pumpkin spice latte. Like we're keeping track, but I love Starbucks.
It feels like it comes out earlier and earlier
I
every
know,
year.
I was like-
that's the thing.
Yeah.
This is August. I mean, it'll be September when this is airing, but I mean,
I'm like, this is dumb.
Okay. Cool.
okay.
But
well, we
then I
could
have
say
to
that about the
remember
Huskers.
people would say that about my passion
But
for
we-
eggnog. You know, so
Yeah.
I get the seasonal drink allure, and you know it only being seasonal, kind of waiting for it, being excited about when it comes out.
It's like
but
the McRib of drinks.
No, I'm saying this is literally you just talking
Shamrock
about
shake.
the little crumble cookie
Yeah,
that you're waiting in
I mean,
line for. So
this is true.
I don't get like I'll have one usually. Like it's pumpkin spice season. I'm like, oh, I'll have one of them, and then I'm like, oh yeah, that's what that is. Okay, and I'm fine.
like-
I'll go back to my normal.
yes,
But
that's how I am too.
it feels ritualistic in a way. But keeping in the theme of pumpkins, we got a headline from Omaha.com that says Nebraska man rides pumpkin for 38 miles in the Missouri River. Wow. Sometimes I wonder, what do we have to be proud of around here? You know, in this flyover country in the Midwest, what can we really be proud of? And now I feel like we got it. This guy, for one, he grew a very large pumpkin that he could fit in.
10 years.
Okay.
10 years it said he was trying to grow that giant of a pumpkin.
Yeah.
I
And
feel like this is incredible. This just made
such
my
a
day.
specific story, too.
It's so cute. And I read, we have one article about it, but I did a little deeper digging.
Oh,
into the
investigative
pumpkin.
journalist
And
Jess Hawley
He like
on the-
took his little pumpkin up to the Bellevue. I don't know if it was like the mayor's office.
Hold on. Can we not just call this a little pumpkin? This
He-
pumpkin
okay,
has been
he
named.
took
It
his
is Berta.
massive
Berta.
pumpkin.
It
his
is named
big
Berta.
Berta pumpkin.
846 pounds.
Okay. He drove this baby up to the mayor's office, and he walks in, and it says that he was like, "Hey, can somebody watch me paddle this down the river? I need some witnesses for the Guinness Book of World
Day
World
after his
Records."
60th birthday.
And he did it,
Wow.
and it's just hilarious seeing. He cut this pumpkin open. He just, wearing a life
Yeah,
jacket.
if you can Google it, it's a great
you
image
have to. Yeah,
see.
please do.
So, what a great fall
I just-
story.
I love
you know,
that.
giant pumpkin.
Yeah.
Please look it up.
Yeah, after some of the things that happened in Ireland over the last weekend, I needed this in my life.
you
I'll
needed-
be honest.
Something to be proud
You
of.
need a
yeah.
little
I needed some more.
big- you need
Reason
a
for
big,
Nebraska pride.
large pumpkin.
Yeah.
Okay, we got one more headline. This is kind of rapid fire here. This one comes from Yahoo News.
Yahoo.
It says Elon Musk says he lost 20 pounds after intermittent fasting and now feels healthier. So,
You go, Elon.
yeah,
Wow.
yes, you do. So I know that Jess, you picked this one specifically
I do.
for Alex, and I thought that was nice.
I try to
It's just
find
like,
a headline for each.
how do you feel about being like in the same, considered in the same boat as Elon Musk? There, you're both into intermittent
Yeah.
fasting.
Wow, I
Is it-
mean, that's exactly what I thought too.
Yeah,
Alex.
it was all the pool talk, all you guys talking about me in the pool in my backyard, and just in case you guys ever stopped over, I
know.
thought.
Well,
I
we've
thought
never
like
been
Elon.
invited. It's about time to winterize.
He
the
said
pool
after
now.
being photographed shirtless and slightly out of shape in the Greek islands in July, this is what made him try it. And so,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I mean, I'm a believer in intermittent fasting. So I've done it for like 3 years, and so I think it works for people, and there's a lot of different reasons to. I mean, I think if you're doing it just like as a diet fad, then I wouldn't recommend that because there'll be the next thing. But
One
lifestyle,
thing-
I'm about it.
I just want to point out, if you read about this, one of the reasons that he did it was because his dad criticized his body.
Yeah,
and I
so-
just
yeah.
feel like we just need to say, don't do that. That is
Don't
terrible
criticize
to do to your
Elon
kids,
Musk's-
to other
oh,
people.
okay.
Let's not fat shame people.
Yeah.
Or just to criticize anybody's bodies and objectify them.
Yeah, Errol. Did you hear that, Errol?
Maybe that's
that his
another
dad's
thing
name?
that makes my blood boil.
There you go.
He recently told Joe Rogan's podcast he liked tasty food and didn't enjoy exercise
Wow.
either. So
I mean, that seems
I
like a
would
pretty
say that
normal
I-
thing for people.
yeah, I mean, I don't know a lot of people that enjoy exercise I
Or
mean, it's
don't like
after.
tasty food.
Yeah, good point.
All right. Well, there's your headlines. I covered a lot there. A lot of
Enjoy.
ground. Pumpkin spice lattes.
Maybe someone will just do
Floating in
a
a
pumpkin
pumpkin.
spice intermittent fasting diet for 30 days and
Oh.
let us know. Just that's all you have.
Yeah. Or you
You
just
know?
eat pumpkin things.
Just pumpkin
Why don't you do
spice.
it? You're wearing orange today.
Yeah, you got your pumpkin outfit on.
Thank you.
It's
Yeah. only eat pumpkin. You could eat like pumpkin
I feel
bars,
like that would be
pumpkin
an
pie.
interesting update for you to give us weekly.
I feel like that would do some things too.
Yeah, it would. I feel like pumpkins have lots of fiber.
Okay. Well,
I don't know.
it's
We'll
working on both ends there. All right. Up next, we're going to be talking about quiet quitting. We're not quiet quitting the podcast, but we're going to be talking about the subject of quiet quitting. So stay tuned for that. Quiet quitting. I just wanted to whisper it because it felt like something that should be whispered. No, but this, again, quiet quitting, it's a TikTok trend. We talked about TikTok earlier. And it started with, I started on TikTok, and then of course it kind of got latched onto by other media outlets. And then there was like news stories, things like that. But what is quiet quitting? I think that's somewhat ambiguous because I think people are maybe misunderstanding it. And I can't help but kind of draw some parallels to the deconstruction conversation, the faith deconstruction conversation that we've had, where it's like, this sounds like a negative term.
Yeah.
Where maybe quiet quitting, it sounds negative, but depending on how people are interpreting it, it may not be as bad as it sounds.
For sure. I mean, I hadn't even heard about this, until someone submitted it like, hey, this is a thought to talk about on here. And so like, I'm like, I was like, what? Like, is it like a way of resigning, without turning in a paper? I honestly didn't know. And so like I had to kind of look it up, and then
my first guess was, it's people that are working from home and they're just not doing their jobs and they're getting a paycheck. That's kind of what I thought, but just from the sounds of it. And I thought maybe it was rooted in like the Great Resignation that's been happening over the, since the pandemic, where a lot of people have been quitting their jobs, but it seems to be somewhat maybe adjacent to that, but more about mental health and just not just doing, the way it's defined is just doing the bare minimum that's required of you, doing your tasks, going home at 5, not going above and beyond, kind of, is really what the term means.
When I first heard the term, I was thinking more of quiet quitting. It sounds very intentional. Like even before knowing what it was, quitting quietly, it just sounds, I don't know. It's like doing something intentionally. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for me. I thought it was a typo when someone typed in
really?
that, because the person that sent it, I think their spouse likes quilting.
Oh.
So I was like,
thought it was
is
quiet
quilting like a thing? And so that's what I started Googling.
It's quilting in like a isolation chamber or something where you can't hear anything. No,
That's funny.
It's not. So I think when you're talking about something like this and then people run with it and it kind of blows up all over, you start to ask yourself, is this good? Is this bad? Is it, little column A, column B? I don't know. What do you guys think? When you maybe share what you thought when you heard it, and then maybe after you've done a little more investigating, what do you think? Did you think it was immediately? Did you think, this is really bad, and you're still kind of on that?
Yeah, to me, immediately when I heard it or had done like actual research to try to figure out what the parameters are, I think things like this blow up because it strikes a nerve, one way or another. And so it becomes relevant to a lot of people because sometimes maybe the definition, the title isn't the best, but something is like, yeah, me too, or that feels right. And so like as the more I researched it, it did sound kind of like what you're referring to, Eric, like not going above and beyond, making sure, and especially maybe in a corporate setting. And I have to admit that, we're in a setting that's probably different than a lot of other, kind of settings as far as like what we do at the church. But there is definitely some corporate aspects to it. But people that are like, hey, I don't owe the company any more than 9 to 5. This is what we agreed to, kind of getting into the nitty gritty of what's my job description, and I'm not doing anything above and beyond what that is. And it seemed like there's, for some people, there's a heart of, it could go two ways. Like I really do need some good boundaries and I'm bad at setting boundaries, or like my mind also goes to, and some people are just like, whatever ways I can take the easy way out, then I want to do that. And so I think it opens up avenues for people with both of those mindsets to maybe jump in and latch on to it. So,
And I think if you do your own research about this, there's so much information around this and so many different perspectives that have been shared on this. I mean, now it's, if you Google it, there's news stories about it. It's kind of exploded more than TikTok and social media.
Yeah.
But I think the reason that things like this catch on so fast is because there's a little bit of something that all of us can kind of relate to it. So
Right.
maybe we're not quietly quitting our job actively, but there's something where it's like, I can relate to, you know, doing a lot and not getting recognized for, or you can kind of have some empathy in it where this just kind of spreads all over and can.
and I think that there's things that set us up for this cultural moment to actually have something like this go,
Yeah.
I mean, viral. One, I think, is we just hashtag, like we live in a hashtag culture. So something like this can catch on and then start spreading, and people start using the hashtag even if they're not talking about it just because it's viral, you know. And then you've got a work at home culture that came from the pandemic, which allows a little bit more of, you know, a separation of like a corporate world and your house. And when you're, I mean, if you've never moved, then a lot of people have found their mental health state of like, I am here all the time and there's not a separation between work and off. Like the boundaries have become more blurred for a lot of people in those kinds of environments, that there is, I think, a health to trying to figure out, you know, when do I turn it on? When do I turn it off? You know, as far as somebody in that kind of situation. And I remember when we, you know, I mean, it seems so distant ago, but when we were, you know, not here in the offices for a few weeks, and even the podcast, we took that home and things like that. I remember like going to my basement, doing a lot of that work and just feeling that tension, you know, of like just a walk up the stairs is my only decompression time between what I dealt with today and that, and not feeling like that was enough. Like I need that drive home to decompress. I need that to shift my mind onto like my kid. Like I have a reminder in my phone as I drive home that says, pray for patience, you know, because there's many days where I'm like, okay, I need to just pray that I walk into my home today, no matter what crazy things could be happening with my kids, knowing my wife has been with them all day, that it's my time to jump in and be a dad. And it could be a fun environment to walk into, or sometimes a crazy, chaotic environment. And like, I need to let go of any baggage maybe I'm bringing for work to that. And so,
well, and I think we've seen a lot of pushback against hustle culture. That's been something that's been talked about a lot, kind of a rejection of that, are just people realizing that maybe their economic status, it feels unmovable to them, where like the housing market is outrageously expensive right now. And so like people are looking at that and saying, oh, well, I'm never gonna get there. I'm never gonna make enough money, and so why am I going out of my way to try to impress my bosses or whatever? And so I think some of it stemmed from that, but I think at the end of the day, millennials and Gen Z tend to just be a little more honest about stuff in a work environment, where I think a lot of times Gen X and boomers, I always felt were kind of teaching me when they were like my supervisors that this is just what you did.
Oh,
like
absolutely.
You put in the extra hours, you put in the effort, you showed up you didn't just do the bare minimum.
And I think that's even like a definition of, when you're looking at different cultures, one of the things that is the boomers are proud of is like, we work hard for what we have.
Yeah. And I think, there's some, I think that debate can go all over the place, because I think some people will be like, oh, well, yeah, but you could work, 50 years ago, you could maybe work at McDonald's and buy a house. And that's not the reality now, And so that debate probably isn't really that helpful, but I do see why there are pain points there from both sides, because the economic situation is just different now, and that's undeniable. But I do think there is more of a leaning into, let's just be honest about this. Like, even with a 40-hour work week, is that always necessary? Is there I mean, are we really spending those 480 hours actually accomplishing tasks, or is it something where, maybe 20 of those hours are I'm getting a lot of work done, and the other 20 is just this I'm answering emails and doing stuff that isn't that important.
Yeah, and I think you see some of that divide in like one of you guys posted like Mr. Wonderful, whatever his name is, Kevin, Shark Tank guy.
Oh,
I think that's his nickname, Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And he, came on and like addressed this in some way.
It's like a YouTube short.
Quiet quitting is bad. Don't quiet quit. I hope my competitors' companies have people quiet quitting. You shouldn't quiet quit because you're never, and so there was.
He posted a second one, or at least I don't know if it's the same one, where he just straight up said, "If you quiet quit, you're a loser."
Yeah,
that was just what he said.
And there's probably some celebrity culture of just staying relevant and being able to get clickbait to that too. But there definitely is that cultural thing, and I think we're seeing with millennials and Gen Z like a much different loyalty, to brand or to company, and so I think all of those things are a big shift. I have, like I've talked about, my father-in-law worked for the same company from like his first job all the way till retirement and kind of worked up, and I've got other family members that have just worked for the same company literally from that idea of being the cart boy or the one that takes bags groceries to like a manager at that company. But then it just seems like those kinds of stories are going to be further and further removed. And a lot of that probably happened because of the ability of these people to go maybe above and beyond and to see how they set themselves away from their peers. And that loyalty is a lost art, I think. And there's pros to it and there's cons to it, I think. So,
and I think you see the negative side of it, where as the workforce is thinning and people are needed more and more, that companies are probably less likely to fire people for things like this,
like things for doing their actual job description and not going above and beyond and like things that have been added to their job description.
Which, I think that's a good point, because it's like, what if this is what I was hired to do, was this specific job, and you're expecting me to do more for no extra pay? Is that where does that end?
Yeah, because I mean, even in quiet quitting, everything I've read is it's not quitting your job. You're just quitting doing what's not in your job description. And I think it's such a confusing thing that we deal with in our culture. If you have a conversation with anybody, at some point, an expectation comes up, whether it's like, I don't know what, my in-laws are coming into town. I don't know like what to expect or like what their expectations are, or this holiday is coming up. And it's just like, it's so ingrained in our culture, like more than we even realize, this expectation. And so it's like an expectation has been set that we have at one point, I mean, it was probably really exciting and we have been rewarded for. And now I think a lot of places have the expectation of, man, these people are working super hard. Like, keep doing it, keep going on. I mean, I don't know how, it plays out differently for every individual, but it's like, okay, I also don't think like striving to be like employee of the month is always like the end all to beat all either. So it's like, I don't know, to me, when I like sift through it, I'm like, okay, there's an expectation here, whether it's like something we've put on ourselves or the company has. I don't think it's like that across the board necessarily, because we can't necessarily speak for everybody, but makes me curious more about.
And I think just the term in general, there's a lot of discourse around, okay, this upcoming generation is just lazy, entitled, and here's just another example of them being lazy and entitled. And I think the flip side of it is, okay, well, if I was hired for a job, I want to do that job really well, but don't expect, the whole world from me either. But I think there's that kind of American dream mentality of, oh, well, if I work harder than my peer, then I'm going to move up and I'm going to be in the spotlight and I'm going to, get what I deserve. And it's like, if you're really good at something, then you should probably be hired for that and not just expected to shine in a lower position, I guess. But
and I think it's hurtful when that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So then it's like, what's the work-life balance? Like, how are you working within your boundaries? Like, we don't even have boundaries. If I were to probably ask even people here, like, what are our work boundaries? It's hard.
Yeah.
Because it kind of like flows in and out of our day to day, especially if we're in it all the time. I was going to share this because LinkedIn tweeted about this, and I thought it was interesting. And I'm sorry I'm springing this on you guys because I am just curious.
We're ready for it.
Okay. LinkedIn says they call it quiet quitting, but it's really just doing your job requirements during normal business hours. People deserve a good work-life balance, and not answering a work email at 10 p.m. isn't quitting. It's just being a normal human who has a life and sets healthy boundaries.
Yeah, I think when it's put in that perspective, it's hard to argue with.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, from a business owner's perspective, I imagine they want, as an employee, they want you to take some ownership of that business. They want you to feel responsible for the business, treat it as if it was your own. I mean, you're never going to be fully there because it's not your own, but I don't think the quiet quitting means that you're not doing that. It's just like, well, I'm not going to take it home to my family, and I'm not going to, stay up at night not sleeping because of my job. I'm just going to try to leave it at the door.
Yeah, and I think overall, hopefully, something like this awakens companies, corporate America or whatever, to take a little bit more seriously. And I think, man, there's no way they're not. I think we are in a spot where, companies are more than ever just doing these kinds of things. I have several friends that are working for companies that, time off and gym memberships and like just an overall health seems to be a bigger driving force behind companies that have realized, man, company culture, and I actually get better production out of employees that aren't burning at both ends, but people that actually have more margin and actually get better sleep. And, so many companies are like, we're giving out Fitbits or all these other, kind of things and doing these challenges because there is undoubtedly an ability to function better and do your job better in almost any kind of circumstance when you are, feeling healthy, when you're, not running on fumes, but, you've got that premium gas or however you want to, put it. And so I think there's a lot of companies that are like, hey, we'll just inject people with sugar and let them just go and then crash. It's that energy crash, and that's just not healthy.
And I think we can articulate it really well, like, and we're speaking pretty freely and comfortably about it. But I also validate the feelings that are the people that walk in and are feeling all these things, and then they're looking at the executive at their job, and they're afraid of being fired or not being able to articulate their feelings and coming off a certain way. I mean, there's also that fear, and it's risky, right? Asking for what you need or setting a boundary when there's maybe not been one or been something like that.
Well, and I think that's the thing too. This isn't new. This idea of setting boundaries. Right. Now we have this phrase, whether for better or worse, quiet quitting, and it's been around forever. People have had to make that choice. And I'm curious, have either of you ever been in a place now? I mean, let's label it this way now, but I mean, did you then feel like you had to do something like this, where you're like, I have to set boundaries in this role because it's getting out of hand or anything like that? I mean, or maybe there was maybe you had more of a negative version of it where you were just trying to, kind of eke by on the lowest output that you could.
I mean, for me, I think it's probably, I've had definitely moments where, and maybe that's where it feels different in the term, I don't know, maybe strikes a nerve with me, is like, to me, when I've gotten the work-life balance out of whack, like I want to go and instead of quietly just like, okay, I'm not going to talk to my supervisor about this, or I'm not going to like vocalize that I'm frustrated with this and seeing some of those frustrations. I'm just going to I'm going to create expectations of me that I am going to be the person that answers emails at all times. And I am going to be the person that works overtime or is available even on my off day. And then I just don't ever have that conversation with, because I've created expectations at that point of that's what it looks like for me to perform my job. And because I'm not in a position where I'm handing in a time clock every single day to a person, and there's like a lot of trust there. And so if I just start just stop doing all those things quietly without having a conversation, then that's, I guess, where it feels to me like I'm doing a disservice to that conversation, and it feels to me like taking the easy way out instead of saying, okay, how can I help set others up for success, or notice I'm not the only one that's having these feelings, but how do we have those conversations? And so to me, that's one of the things about this phrase, and maybe the movement that irks me a little bit is that ability to just like, well, let's skip the tough conversation, and then maybe 3 months from now be like, well, I've been doing my job, even though I created those expectations, for maybe years or months on end.
Yeah.
And so
No, that's really good.
I think for me, I would not have obviously thought of this term at the time, but I would equate it more to feeling burnt out or like a loss of joy with where I was. And I think for me, in that it was the high expectations and then not knowing how to ask for help, and then as a result, like isolating myself. And I think there's this, there's this glorification of like strength is powerful and it's respected, and weakness, it makes me question, are you the right person in this job? Like, oh, you're stressed out and you're having anxiety and you're being vulnerable in this meeting that you have too many hours. Can you handle your job? And so I think there's this tendency to isolate. And to me, that's kind of a root of where this is I'm feeling this way. I can't ask for help. I don't know who to ask for help. Weakness, I can't show that, so let me isolate. And I think this is a result of trying to fix a problem on our own and not feeling like we can. So if anything, yes, it is kind of irky, but I think it's bringing an awareness, like you said, Eric, to something that is there. Maybe we would have put different terms on it. To me, I kind of related it to, if I was going this way, I'm probably burnt out and I'm probably losing some joy or not doing the things that I find joy in or what I'm passionate about in my job.
Well, and I think some of the things that we were speaking about earlier can lead to a place of wanting to quit. And that's when you're trying to be that star at work, or you're trying to be the one to get noticed. And then maybe you do put a lot of extra work into it and you don't feel like you got the recognition you deserve. I think that can kind of lead you mentally to a place of like, well, whatever, they don't care. I'm just going to do the bare minimum and make it. So, but I also think sometimes that it is tough, no matter who you are, to be honest about our secret career motives, because sometimes I think we have those, and it's not always. I mean, they're not always maybe of the highest integrity. Sometimes I think you climb a ladder and because you want more. You want more money. You want more recognition. You want more security. You want to keep up with the Joneses. And I think being honest about that is kind of at least adjacent to this conversation is, where are people at? Do they feel that's an opportunity? They have that opportunity. Why do we either put in more effort or don't put in more effort? Like, what are those kind of secret motivators that are behind that? And I mean, that can probably go to somewhat of a dark place for people sometimes if they really broke it down and said, why am I really chasing after, this corporate ladder? What is it that, is it for the bigger house? Is it for whatever? But do you guys feel that, maybe not you personally, but do you see that in either friend circles or acquaintances or other things like that?
I think it just adds to a lot of, like we've already said, anxiety and stress and this overall pressure of, keeping up with the Joneses, like things being more expensive now. I mean, like everybody's grocery bill has even gone up. So it also goes back, I feel like, to the expectations. Like it's such a layer. It's like an onion. You know what I mean? Where it's like, once you unpeel one thing, it's like, okay, well, there's expectations. Well, then it's like, I feel this pressure or I feel isolated. And I think I would be curious what you guys think about this, because I think for a lot of us, we want to say, well, nobody sees me and I'm doing all this hard work and nobody's validating me and I want to be seen and heard. And I think as Christians, like, I'm sorry to laugh, but it's hard to find comfort when someone says, well, God sees you. and God validates you, even though that's like one of the most like powerful, most beautiful truths about who the Lord is, that we're never alone. We're always seen and validated, but it's hard. I mean, where do you find comfort in it, even spiritually, when it's like you're going through, and maybe it's your perspective of you're going through a valley and it's a testing time, but I don't know. Thoughts? How do you get, how do you wrap your head around that? Because it's hard to find comfort.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, to your,
maybe comfort isn't the right word.
Yeah. To your question, I guess, Eric, I'm thinking, and to where you're going, Jess, because I think there's like a passage in Colossians, sorry. I don't know, 2 or 3.
One of those.
I don't remember the exact address right now. But it's this whole conversation about godly living, and whatever you do in work, do it, to the Lord and not unto men. And so there's this encouragement. And in that context that Paul's writing to, he actually says slaves or bondservants in that kind of conversation. And he's encouraging them. And we hear that word slavery and we're like, oh no. And it's totally different kind of contextually what Paul's encouraging at this time. He's not saying, hey, keep being a slave, but it's more of an employee-employer kind of cultural understanding at that time. And he's saying, hey, work unto the Lord, be excellent unto the Lord and not unto men, because people are going to fail you, but the Lord won't. And so how do you continue to do that? And so I think there is scripture, not just this God sees you, but where do our motivations come from that actually, am I in an environment where I want to bring value or more thriving or flourishing to a company? Because if I do that, then it's probably better for me and it's probably better for others. Or I even think of like a lot of customer service types of positions. It's very easy to like do the job with no joy, but to give all the right words, right? Like you could go to have a server that just, they come, they ask for your food order. They bring your drinks, not a lot of interaction, not a lot of warmness or friendliness. Or there's the same person that's doing that same functional job, but they seem to care a little bit more and seem to be more inviting. And to me, I'm like, I want the person that really has a passion about it. I mean, people greeting at this church, right? I mean, if someone's just at a door because we need somebody at a door, and they're like, welcome to Christ Community. And I mean, and I get it. I have the worst resting face ever, so I have to remind myself of these things. There's a way to do a job even with excellence in that time, or in joy and passion, or a way to still do the same job and meet the minimum requirements, but really not have your heart in it. And I think there's a part of that helps us figure out, am I honoring God in this? Am I doing this unto God or unto men? Who am I serving here? And ultimately, obviously, like we are in some way we need money. Yeah. And we have jobs, and part of our job, no matter what you do, no matter how passionate about it you are, is you have bills to pay, and so that's just a reality of it. And so in some way, we are servants to a master, that is paying our paychecks, and that can feel yucky sometimes. And so I think there's just that reality that, well, I've got, there's just regulations and rules and all of this red tape over me that I have to obey the rules in order to get a paycheck. And so there's some of that just reality to having a job.
I think when you definitely like hit the nail on the head, because I think when you go into a situation and you are entering it with a negative perspective, which I think quiet quitting could easily be, like, okay, well, I don't care anymore. And you lose all joy in what you're doing, and you have to be doing this on a daily basis, and it's required of you. And if you're just going to go in and give the least amount of effort, I think it's not going to be fulfilling to you. And I think are ways to find things fulfilling. Like when I was 18, I remember I got married when I was 18, and the job it wasn't my first job, but the job I got was at a Spiegel customer service. I don't know if you remember Spiegel, but it was answering phones and talking to people. And I was probably 6 months into that job, and it was like one of those kind of soul draining jobs where you're just this is not going anywhere. It's not fulfilling. And I saw this button you could push on the phone thing that was like, I don't know if it was like skip call or pass call or something like that. And I just like tapped that a few times before I'd take a call, and I didn't really know what it did, and I just sit there and I'd do that. And about a week after I started doing that a lot, my manager came over and it's like, "Hey, Eric, I'd like to talk to you." Just sit down, we talk. And he's like, "Yeah, I noticed your numbers have really gone up on the amount of calls you're taking." And he gives me some crazy number, like, I don't know, you're taking 10 calls a minute or something unattainable, you know? And I was naive enough at that moment to go, "Oh, wow, I'm going to get a raise. Like, or I'm going to get a promotion. Like, this guy thinks I'm great, you know?" And so I'm kind of starting to feel, you know, excited about it. And he goes, that's impossible. And I'm like, "Oh no." And so he pretty much gave me an ultimatum at that point. Like, "Okay, well, you can either choose to quit or be fired." Like that was the moment. Like,
I thought you didn't even get a second chance.
Yeah, it was just, they were not happy with me doing that. But it's just one of those things where it's like in that moment, you know, I'd given up, and it was, the consequences weren't worth it. Like all of that stuff. So it's just like you said, or I think you said this much earlier, Alex, but like having that conversation with your supervisor, or having that conversation, getting that out in the open is just so much more valuable to you in the long run. Other than just going, "Okay, I'm going to do this silent protest." I don't know that there are many situations where that's going to lead to a positive outcome.
Yeah. And I probably, from a church perspective, because I think 2020 gave a lot of people permission in a different way to be quiet quitters of their church.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you're not seeing somebody, you know, people are able to kind of, it's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while." Or I sent somebody a text message one time asking him, because I hadn't seen him in a while and I had worked with him previously as a volunteer. I'm like, "Hey, would love to, you know, get together and talk to you about, you know, volunteering maybe in this position." And they're like, "Yeah, we stopped attending," which is fine. But I'm like, man, I wish I would have known that one, that would save me an awkward conversation here. But like, I want to know why. Like, I want to know how we can do better. And so sometimes we get mad, maybe, you know, we look at faith deconstruction or those who make a big splash on TikTok or whatever about them leaving the faith or those kinds of things. And so that's frustrating because it's like, okay, you're just giving this laundry list of excuses.
Sure.
And just, you're making this all about you. But then on the flip side, I think there's a lot of people that, you know, maybe leave the faith because they don't want to ask questions, or, you know, they don't want to question authority. And, you know, like, to me, that's stuff that makes my heart break. On the church side of it is that there's a lot of people I think are quiet quitting their faith or quiet quitting maybe a community that they've been a part of because, and maybe it is more actually quitting and not showing up anymore, or just doing the bare minimum, saying, "Well, me and Jesus have a relationship. I don't need community anymore." So they haven't quit their faith. They still have a relationship with Jesus, but they're like, "Yeah, showing up and being in person." You know, I've had those conversations with people that are like, we prefer watching online because it's just way more convenient. And I'm like, I'm the online person. I want to help make sure we're putting this online for people. But this isn't just like for you to be conveniently consuming content and saying, "Well, it's just a better rhythm for us. And we like to wake up later and not have to go and be with people and have conversation." I'm like, but that's also not what we're called to either. And so let's not take the easy way out in those conversations as well. And so that's probably the bent that I have and the bias that I have going into this conversation. It's like, let's just not take the easy way out of because I've had a lot of difficult conversations with people that have been some of the most fruitful conversations I've had with people. And I'm so grateful for those that have listened to me or that have come to me and had those conversations because I think usually a lot of just missed expectations come out in that, and we're able to actually work through it and find a better balance at the end of the day. So.
And some of this that we've talked about today is probably said with the thought of, okay, you have someone who is supervising you who would have a conversation with you. And the reality is there probably are situations where you have maybe abusive is too strong of a term, but at least not a healthy relationship with your supervisor. And so this is where you're leaning because you need the paycheck. You can't quit the job and you have to set those boundaries. So I think when it's from the perspective of setting healthy boundaries, like I think that's okay.
For sure.
But I think also if you can have that conversation and explain maybe or talk it through with somebody, that's probably of paramount importance in this situation other than just completely ignoring the situation altogether.
Yeah, that's really good.
Any closing thoughts as we wrap things up?
I think this is a conversation that can be really validating for people, and I think it can also be really eye-opening. So I think it's an opportunity to look where you're at, and then to know. And we didn't even talk about these risks, but just that leads to cynicism and that leads to a loss of integrity. I mean, it's kind of a slippery slope.
Yeah, for real.
When we start, I think it leads, when it leads to isolation and all these things. And so I think it's an opportunity to kind of look inward and to see. And I love how you also attributed it to church, and it's like, how are we doing this in other ways? Maybe we're happy at our jobs, and that's not the issue. But what
your
are
relationship with your spouse?
Yeah, like what are things that we're just like, okay, this isn't worth it, and then it's like, okay, if that's what you realize, that's awesome. That is being aware of where you are. Now, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
And maybe I'm just triggered this week. I don't know. And this isn't really about this conversation, but right now, student loans, right, are a big deal. People are saying a lot of things about it one way or another. I'm sure people would love us to talk about that at some point, but I think we have to just realize, man, we have to sit down and have these, and I think that's why we love this podcast is there's so much more nuance to all of the conversations that are happening that become these buzz topics.
Right.
And it's just a different world. We are in a different economy. The internet's changed things. There's so many different things. And so before I just go overlay a lot of assumptions on laziness, apathy, a whole entire generation for this or that, like I just have to realize that I'm coming with presuppositions. Help me understand. Like we just have to keep asking that question. Proverbs 18:2 says, fools find no pleasure in understanding, but delight in airing their own opinions.
Yeah.
If you come to my office, you'll see that on the board as well, because I have to remind myself of that because I want to air my own opinions a lot of times on social media or wherever and not delight in understanding. But man, we are called to delight in understanding, which I think takes a lot more listening.
Yeah.
Rather than just airing our own opinion. So I would just even caution people in a lot of these conversations, delight in understanding other people, their perspectives, to hearing them. You don't have to end up agreeing with them at the end of the day, but delight in understanding, spend maybe more time understanding point of view than you do with airing your own opinion. I think that's a caution we could all apply a little bit more to our lives, and I think that would help the world thrive a little bit more.
Yeah. Great. All right. Well, that does it for this episode of the Uncomfortable Podcast. Thanks, everyone who is listening. If you want to reach out to us, you can do that on social media. Head on over to our Instagram or TikTok account at CCCOMA Podcast, or you can send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org. We'd love to hear from you. You can also call us. That's a thing. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.